the stage show Ain't Too Proud apart from other stage shows and other musicals? What makes it special?
Well, I'm not going to use myself as a yardstick to measure others by, but I'm going to say ours has got substance. It's not about five guys coming out there, dressed to the nines and hair slicked back, however we were back then. This man here brought us through a whole lot of barriers that we never would imagine that we would come through. He got us on Ed Sullivan about 13 different times. When we first found out that we were going on Ed Sullivan, we were scared because Ed Sullivan, not only for the mass that it would reach, Ed Sullivan, they only did one take. Every time you would see Ed Sullivan, that was live. So if anybody messed up, let's go back again, one of the temps forgot their steps. So we had to be rehearsed and groomed, because when he said you're going on Ed Sullivan, boy, we were happy, but we were scared, because that's a show you don't want to fluff on, because ain't no Otis or David, somebody missed their mark. Sorry about that, show gonna continue on until it's over with. So we have had that kind of training. Like Shirley and myself, we didn't mention it, but they had an artist development at Motown where we were taught how to be in show business. This man, Shirley Berger, who's been my manager for 56 years, Barry Gordon, believed enough in Harvey Fuqua, who brought Charlie Atkins, Maurice King, Johnny Allen, and a lot of real important people to groom us. Now, we had the talent, but we had to be refined for the rooms that he wanted to put us in, because all before that, it was Chitlin Circuit. We had a black belt doing the Chitlin Circuit. But he brought us beyond that to the Copacabana, to Las Vegas, Monte Carlo. I mean, plush rooms where you had to come in there very proper, do what we're known for, but not coming out there grabbing Knock Johnson or bending over, cracking. You see the crack of your behind. And I love that. That's timeless. And here we are 60 years later sitting here talking about it.
Speak on the refinement of that, the brushing of the diamond, the rough diamond, brightening.
Well, if you don't have the diamond, you can shine a rhinestone as much as you want, it's going to be a rhinestone. I was fortunate enough to be given diamonds to start with, okay? And it's not like they came to me in clodhoppers and, with straw hats. I mean, these guys were brilliant talents. Many of the other artists at Motown were brilliant talents, that it was just a question of making the world aware of these young, brilliant talents. You see, the Ed Sullivan Show was one thing. In 1968, Motown accomplished something with the Temptations and the Supremes.
Yep.
The first time two black pop acts, just no other acts, just the Temptations and the Supremes. #1 television special, one of the great musical special, Emmy Award winner, in a medium that wasn't an entertainment medium, was an advertising medium. There is nothing more racist than advertising. We broke through. Why did we break? We didn't break through because we broke through because these two giant talents were there. And that's what it has always been. But the point of artist development and everything like that is you've got to keep the dedication. You cannot sit back on your laurels and say, well, I've made it. It's okay. Yeah, a lot of groups did that. They're no longer here. You see, you talk about the Beatles, okay? John left the Beatles, there were no more Beatles.
Right.
All right, you want to talk about groups throughout history. A lead singer leaves, the lead singer doesn't make it, the group doesn't make it. Otis Williams had 29 different Temptations. And 60 years later, here we are, getting ready to open at the Prince Edward Theatre on the West End of London. This is the reason. He is sitting in front of you. His his life, how he dealt with life, how these other people dealt with life, and people will see themselves in it. They'll see a part of themselves in this production. It is, if you want to come and see the Temptations, go to the O2 Arena on the 11th of this month, and you will see the Temptations sing and dance the way the Temptations, when you see Ain't Too Proud, you are seeing a story of 5 or 6 human beings who have the foibles, had the failings, and some made it, some kept on, some didn't. This is the constant. 60 years later, this is the reason that the Temptations are what the Temptations. Now, there was a lot of hell. Smokey Robinson was hell, Norman Whitfield, Barrett Strong, all these people, Eddie Holland, Berry Gordy, all these people were a help, but they were just a help. They didn't make the Temptations. The Temptations made the Temptations. The Temptations tried to destroy the Temptations. One man would not let it happen. And that is why people will see this, and it will affect them. It will affect them because we've seen how it affects people, and there are no greater fans in the world than the English. Okay, and I am not saying that because I'm sitting in London.
Oh, I love that.
I have experienced this for the last 60 years, how we have been treated, how we have been accepted by the English people. America's the fast food society. Every 2 weeks there's a new star. England, you become a star, you are a star. And that's how we are treated to this very day. We are treated basically the same in America, but there is a certain love. And as big as this show was on Broadway, it will be bigger on the West End.
See, that takes me to my next question, but I don't want to hijack this. I don't want to hijack it. Go for it.
Thank you for that answer. I'm trying to visualize I don't know if you were the lone white man in a room full of black people. I don't know how you two got together. I'm just trying to visualize. And was it easier, you knocking on that door on behalf of the Temptations? I know that you've already said basically they had the talent anyway, but still they were black.
You know what? Berry Gordy's sister, Esther, was our manager first. And as fate and time would have it, Shelley joined Motown in 1966. Miss Evans, Barry's sister, black woman. But she didn't have the vision or somewhat the wherewithal to do what he did. You know, so that's what really upped the game, because Barry told Shelley, not only will you manage the Supremes, you're now managing the Temptations. So he took us from his sister because this man had a better vision and a thing that he wanted to do for us. And Shelley kills me when Shelley ran down to what he wanted to do for the Supremes, and we'd have our own specials and this and that. Barry wanted to find him because he thought Shelley was on crack or something, because he couldn't believe that.
He said, the man is either the biggest liar or he's on drugs. Because I believed this from the day that I entered Motown, and I didn't know I was going to be managing. I got a job to run the California office of Motown. And when Berry Gordy met me and knew of my background, he said, well, do you think we can get our artists on television? And I said, Mr. Gordy, not only are we going to get our artists on television, we're going to produce our own television specials. And one day we're going to produce our own movies. And one day they're going to do a documentary about Motown. And he excused himself from the meeting, called Ralph Seltzer, who had hired me, and said, fire this guy. And Ralph said, I will fire him, but why am I firing him? He said, because either the man's on drugs or he's the biggest liar that I ever heard in my entire life. And about 25 years later, and we were doing Motown special, Motown Today, Forever, Motown 25. And Berry Gordy wanted me interviewed. And I said, remember that July day when I told you we would do our own television specials. Remember that day I told you we do our own movies. Remember that day I told you we were going to have a documentary. It's not the documentary I really wanted, but it's now come full circle, and you were going to fire me. He said, I was never going to fire you, and I said, you are full of shit. And I can say that.